Welcome to the Miss Retro Read Show. Did you think Freddy the Pig 2 and Again was a funny book? It was pretty good. I especially liked when Jinx fell in the paint. That's hilarious. And when Jinx and the other animals were scaring the robbers, that was a pretty funny part. There's one more story in 2 and Again that I'm going to read you guys eventually. And it's when they go to the North Pole, if you can believe that. So stay tuned for that. You might find it even funnier than the one we just read. But I highly recommend this series of Freddy the Pig, and you can probably find it at your local library. For Facts Known by Few, we'll be having a dogs versus cats war. Have you ever heard of fighting like dogs and cats? I guess it can be true. Are you a dog person or a cat person? Do you have any pets at home? If you do, you might learn something about them today. Here are a few facts about dogs and cats. Cats can run 30 miles an hour. Dogs can run between 20 and 45 miles an hour. Cats live between 12 to 25 years, and dogs live from 12 to 18 years. Cats can sleep 16 hours a day, and dogs can sleep 18 to 14 hours, depending on the breed. Cats smell through ducts in the roof of their mouth, and dogs can smell everything, even low blood sugar levels in people's breath. Some dogs have even been trained to warn diabetic people when their blood sugar level is dangerously low. Cats and dogs' nose prints are as unique as your fingerprints. Both dogs and cats have gone to space. Cats and dogs sweat through their paws. Cats can jump up to 6 times their length. The record now is 7 feet. The world's largest dog was a mastiff named Zorba, who weighed 343 pounds. The world's oldest cat was 38 years old, and the oldest dog was 29 years and 5 months. So I guess the cat wins there. Most cats and dogs have 18 toes. White cats have a higher chance of deafness, but a third of Dalmatians also have a chance of being deaf in one ear. Cats can rotate their eyes 180 degrees. Bloodhounds' sense of smell is so accurate, it can be used as evidence in a court of law. In Egyptian history, they worshipped cats. If a family's cat died, they would shave off their eyebrows to show their mourning. The oldest known dog breed is thought to be the Saluki. It was a tracking dog in Egypt. A feline's kidneys are able to filter out salt, allowing them to drink seawater to stay hydrated. Now, don't go and give your cat water that has salt in it. Thank you. A canine sense of smell is 10,000 times stronger than human sense of smell. Cats' front paws have 5 toes, but their back paws only have 4 toes. Dogs have 3 eyelids, an upper lid, a lower, and a third lid. Now for some history regarding famous dogs and cats. Laika was the first dog in space. Laika was sent into space by the Soviet Union in Sputnik 2 in 1957. After being found on the streets of Moscow, she became the first living animal to orbit the Earth. Originally, it was thought that Laika died 4 days into her journey, but it was revealed in 2002 that she only lasted around 5 hours before overheating. There is a statue of Laika in Moscow. Felicite is the only cat to have survived space flight. She was launched into space by France in October of 1963. She had a 15-minute flight and reached an altitude of 130 miles and safely returned to Earth. A statue of Félicité is in Strasbourg, France. In Nome, Alaska, in 1925, there was an outbreak of diphtheria, a deadly, contagious disease. The only cure was hundreds of miles away in Anchorage. Thanks to bad weather, the only way to get it was by dog sled. A relay of dog sleds passed the antidote on to the final leg of the journey. Sledder Gunnar Caisson and his dog Balto led their team of dogs through 54 miles of blizzards and temperatures of minus 40 below. When the team successfully made it to Anchorage to get the antidote, Balto was hailed a hero. Balto's taxidermied body is in the Cleveland Museum of Natural History. There's a statue to him in Central Park. Oscar, or Unsinkable Sam, was the luckiest cat. He survived 3 shipwrecks. On May 18, 1941, the Nazi ship Bismarck was sunk. A British destroyer, the HMS Cassock, found a cat floating on a board in the Atlantic Ocean. They rescued him and named the cat Oscar. The international code for man overboard is the letter O. On October 24, 1941, the Cassock was hit by a German torpedo. 159 sailors were killed, but Oscar survived their attack. It was brought onto shore in Gibraltar. Now his name became Unsinkable Sam, and he was transferred to the aircraft carrier HMS Ark Royale on November 14, 1941. This Ark Royale was also sunk by a U-81. Sam was again found clinging to the floating plank and rescued by a motor launch. Sam was taken to the office of the governor of Gibraltar, where he was retired from sea duty. Sam spent the remainder of his days in a seaman's home in Belfast, Ireland. He died in 1955. Now, the reason why often there are cats on ships is because they are trying to keep the rat population down on boats that often will eat the food. And when you're on a ship, you need all the food you can get because sometimes you're out for long periods of time. But if you asked me, that cat seemed to be a jinx. I don't know. Duncan was one of Robert the Bruce's dogs. Remember Braveheart? He was a bloodhound, popular with Scottish nobility. In 1306, Edward I of England wanted to capture Robert the Bruce. Robert was in hiding. English soldiers took Duncan, the dog, and being a bloodhound, set him out to find his master. Duncan led the English soldiers right to Robert the Bruce's hiding place. But when the soldiers started to attack Robert, Duncan turned on the men to protect his master. Robert the Bruce survived and became King of Scotland. In the Crimean War, British and Russian soldiers were fighting and both sides were close to starving. A British lieutenant, William Gare, was searching a Russian cellar for food. He found a very dirty cat sitting on some rubble. He took the cat to a shelter and washed him, and named him Tom. William noticed that the cat seemed fat, so he followed him to see where he was catching his mice. Tom led them to a pile of rubble. When they cleared it away, they found a storeroom of food and were saved. William took Tom back to England, where the cat lived until 1856. Sergeant Stubby was a small Boston Terrier type. He became one of the most decorated war dogs in American history. Stubby was a mascot for the 102nd Infantry Division only after his owner, Corporal Robert Conroy, smuggled Stubby on a troop ship heading for France during World War I. Stubby was in many battles, including the Battle of Margny and the Battle of Chateau-Thierry. Stubby had amazing hearing, and he knew when the enemy was coming, even if they were far away. He also warned the soldiers when gas attacks came with his amazing sense of smell. Stubby lived to be 10 years old, and after he died, he was taxidermied and is on permanent display at the Smithsonian Institute. Acoustic Kitty is not the name of a cat, but the name of a $20 million CIA project intended to spy on the Kremlin and the Soviet embassies. A microphone was implanted into the ear canal of a cat with a small radio transmitter implanted into the base of its skull. The first cat used was immediately hit by a taxi. The CIA concluded that there was too many problems connected with the project, and it was canceled. In the 1930s, Jack was a flat-coated retriever who lived by the Swansea docks. Swansea Jack had a knack of saving people from drowning. When he was still a puppy, he first rescued a 12-year-old boy. Over the course of his life, he saved 27 people from the waters. Sadly, Jack died on October 2, 1937, after eating rat poison. A large gravestone can be seen today in Swansea, Wales, in Jack's honor. So what do you think? Who wins, dogs or cats? I think both dogs and cats are very brave. In fact, one of my favorite people in history, Winston Churchill, had a cat, even though he was called the bulldog. For books I have known, I highly recommend Searching for and Maintaining Peace by Father Jacques Philippe. It was first printed in 2002 by St. Paul's Press, and I'm pretty sure you can still find talks on YouTube given by Father Jacques Philippe if you don't want to read it. And you spell Jacques Jacques, and Philippe Philippe. It's a small book and is super good for people who worry a lot. Take my advice, it's a really good book. I'll read a very small portion of it that you might find interesting on when bad things happen to you. So this is on page 101, and it says, "Don't let your misfortunes upset you. Don't ever allow yourself to become upset by your misfortunes. In face of your miseries, should you find yourself in this situation by the will of God, remain humble and lowly before God, and be at great peace. Respond to all misfortune, whatever it may be, with gentleness, peace, tenderness, interior moderation before God, abandoning yourself simply into His hands, so that He make you and in you what He pleases. Wish calmly and peacefully to live only for Him, through Him, and in Him." So that's just a taste of that book. I really like it, and it's helped me a lot. So try it out. Searching for and Maintaining Peace by Father Jacques Philippe. For Busy Bees, we're going to talk a bit about cooking. Now, who doesn't like eating? In order to get some food, you have to cook it. Here are some easy cooking ideas for beginner cooks. Remember that if you're a kid, you need help from an adult in the kitchen, because there are things like knives and heat and things that can burn you, so just be careful, and you need to ask someone. Anyone want a hot sandwich? You can put meat and cheese on 2 slices of bread, put a little bit of butter on the outside, and put that in a waffle maker, and you're going to have a hot sandwich. You can also make a quesadilla using 2 tortillas and some cheese, and you're going to put a little bit of oil on the outside of the tortillas and put that in a pan, and it's going to make the outside crispy and the inside, the cheese is going to melt. I personally like onions and cucumbers in mine too, but hey, you can just try cheese. Then you cut it like a pizza, and voila, you have a quesadilla. Very yummy. You can also make turkey roll-ups using tortillas. Pretty easy and simple. And have you ever, when making a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, put the potato chips on the inside of the sandwich? If you do this, you need to eat it right away though, so that it'll be crispy. You might like it. If you want a sweet treat and you have chocolate chips, you can put them in a microwave safe bowl and put them in the microwave maybe for 30 seconds, check it, stir it, and then just put it in for 30 seconds more, and that will melt the chocolate. Then put down some wax paper or foil, get out some potato chips, dip it in the chocolate and set it on the foil and let it dry, and it's a yummy, yummy treat. You could also dip washed and dried fruit in the chocolate, and it's really yummy. And if you have a blender and you ask an adult for help before you do this, if you're a child, you can put ice and milk and fruit to make a smoothie. I like putting cinnamon in mine just because I like cinnamon. And if you take that smoothie or some juice and you put it in some little plastic cups, and then you put a popsicle stick in the top of it, put it in the freezer, and after a few hours you'll have some popsicle. These are only a few ideas of things you can make, but it's important to learn basic cooking skills in life. I'm sure there will be occasions when you'll need to cook on your own. So, bon appetit, and you might enjoy it. For It's All Good, I'd like to recommend a show called The Andy Griffith Show, starring Andy Griffith and Don Knotts. It's about a sheriff in a small town called Mayberry. And Andy has a son named Opie, and Andy's Aunt Bee cooks and takes care of Opie and lives with him since his wife passed away. Barney is Andy's deputy in the police force and is the funniest one in the show, I think. He's a police officer in a small town and takes himself too seriously. He and Andy have a great comic timing, and every now and then the Darling family comes into town, who are hillbilly family, and they come down from the hills and they play some amazing bluegrass music. They were really the Dillard family, and you can still find their bluegrass records. I really love their music. I think one of my favorite episodes is when Mr. Darling wants to marry Aunt Bee and take her to live with him in a rundown house in the country. And he is a widower and has, I think, 4 sons, grown sons living with him. Andy comes up with a scheme to get Aunt Bee out of it. He tells Aunt Bee that he has to make the Darlings clean their house and take baths and basically try and civilize them. And Mr. Darling finally can't take it anymore and calls off the engagement. Otis is another constant character in the show, and he is the town drunk, and he will come voluntarily and give himself up when he's had too much to drink. And I love one episode where he tells Andy and Barney that he's going to buy a car. Can you imagine? He's the town drunk and he wants to drive a car. So Andy starts to worry about this, and he thinks up a plan to try and dissuade him from driving a car anymore. And it's pretty funny what happens. Maybe there are a few episodes you don't like, just skip them. No worries on that. You're not going to miss much. And they're all pretty funny, but there are a few that I skip. It ran from 1960 to 1968, and it's hard to pick a favorite character, but I really enjoy Floyd, the town barber. He's always like hilarious. I don't know. He always gets me. And in real life, he had a stroke in the middle of the series. And Andy still kept him on the show, even though he couldn't stand anymore because of his stroke. And you might notice that later in the season, Floyd is always seated, and he can't really move one of his arms because of the stroke. Aunt Bee is always making amazing meals in the show. And there's one episode where there are new requirements for the police officers. There's new rules. So they have to be a certain weight and height. And Barney is too thin and about, I can't remember if it's a half an inch or an inch short on the height. So he uses a neck stretcher to gain an extra half an inch in height. But even Aunt Bee's cooking can't help him gain weight. And Andy again comes up with a great idea on how to save the day. So check that out. I think you'll enjoy that series. I always have. And the next book I'm going to be reading is a favorite of mine. It's really helped me a lot in life. And it's really good for anybody who tends to worry a bit. And it's called Abandonment to Divine Providence by Pierre de Caussade. And it teaches you to trust God's plan for you in your life. It helps you to let go and let God do it. Very helpful to me. I basically know it by heart now, so very happy to share it with you. That's up next for the book we'll be reading. And happy Mother's Day in the U.S. to all the mothers out there. And I know in other parts of the country you have it on different days. So happy Mother's Day. We wouldn't want to forget our mothers. We wouldn't be here without them. See you next time. And thanks for listening to Miss Retro Reads Good Books. And have a great day.